you're building public now. What's the biggest perk that you've experienced in building publicly?
I do think that it's mainly the relationships that I built. So it's not necessarily marketing, but the relationships like finding marketing partners. So things like that where you can't really put a value or like a return on investment on it. People like when they see that you're doing something, right? And then you show your work and then also helps them. It's just a more kind of win-win approach as well. I want to build something useful and cool that people like to use. As I've matured, I learned that I also need to be reasonable, that I need to pay my bills. And the older I get, the more bills I have to pay.
Welcome aboard, Stefan. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you get started with just talking a little bit about building in public and just everything that you're doing right now?
Sure, man. Thanks for having me. Where do we start? So we were just talking about part-time launch that we had today. We built a maid of honor speech generator. That's one of the projects. More recently, we also launched a SEO outline software that's called SwiftBrief. And so, yeah, I mean, we're playing around with a couple of approaches of just having multiple bets, multiple smaller streams of income, and just building it in public, leveraging Twitter for both early feedback and just as a hub to launch new tools and see what happens. And that's what we've been doing, I think, for 12 months, 18 months, something like that. So yeah.
And your background, you've built so many different products for so many different companies, both as an entrepreneur, as a co-founder, at an incubator. Talk a little bit about what that experience was like, and then we'll bring it back to what you're working on now.
Yeah, as you said, doing a lot of work, a lot of different things. I haven't found one thing to sink my teeth in forever until now, right? So I've co-founded a dating app. I built another dating app. I built a B2B SaaS for meeting recordings. I am now building mostly B2B SaaS. I've done some, mostly, consumer mobile work in the beginning. So a lot of like big bets that have monetization kind of pushed down the road, and it's not a core component of what we're doing. It's more just like capturing attention and getting a lot of installs virality, grow very big very fast, and then kind of monetize later. So that's kind of my background, and I have only worked in very small startups, companies, teams, basically my whole career. And the reason for that was that I had an internship at a more like SMB kind of company very early on when I was still studying, and it was definitely not what I was looking for in terms of like the processes and everything, just like being super slow and everybody kind of not really, loving their job and being bored at what they're doing. And they're just like, oh, I'll do whatever and it'll be fine. But I was like, I don't know. I wanted to do something where I like can stand behind and I can just be like fully, throw myself into it. And I think that is just what it sort of is, and the kind of work that you do. And it comes with a lot of different challenges, but also comes with a lot of rewards, And so I think that that's just something that I've always enjoyed. And so I've never, after co-founding my first company that obviously went nowhere because we were just a bunch of engineers doing cool shit and nobody, there wasn't any market for it. But we were just like, yeah, this sounds fun, like this typical idea of like, wouldn't it be cool, like that idea starts like that, then it definitely doesn't go anywhere usually. But that's how it started. And since then, I only worked in that space. So yeah.
So I think I kind of like the concept of wouldn't it be cool if, right? And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs start, whether you're technical or non-technical. It's kind of starting with that idea, but you've been doing this for over a decade. You've kind of landed up on saying, okay, well, I actually need to understand that there is a market, there's a pain point that I'm solving, and then I get paid, right? Ideally, I get paid. So talk a bit about the transition from before big bets, trying to kind of do the Silicon Valley model of never make money, but grow and be $1 billion company. And then everyone's amazed and you still lose money, but you IPO versus now you're kind of going the complete opposite approach, which is like bootstrapping multiple small bets. What's that look like, and how have you liked the transition into this new approach?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't very smooth. I think, I said we've been doing it for a bit, and I think why we haven't been as successful as we could have been until now is a lot because we were still kind of stuck in that thinking, right? Like we were saying, okay, we're going to bootstrap something, but then we were looking at ideas that were too big in scope to even be like feasible bootstrap, right? It's more just like improving something that already exists and making it better rather than, disrupting a whole market. But what we were looking at was like first couple projects were just too big, and so that kind of failed, right? But now I think we have a good kind of sense of, okay, how big does the market need to be useful to us as a goal, but then also how small does it need to be. There's like a zone in the middle where it's like not so big that we will face a lot of VC fueled competition, where we don't have a stand a chance because we don't have the budget, we don't have the marketing budget to compete, right? So I think that has been a learning for sure. And why I wanted to do that is basically, after I've been doing this since 2012, so 5, 6 years, and a couple bets of like VC startups. And what was annoying to me the most was basically that we would often have to pivot, obviously not getting enough traction to raise the next round, right? And so would often have to pivot into something that we weren't like super passionate about in building, but because the VCs were willing to fund it, right? So one good example is somewhat recently we were building an app for video editing, and then we had some
What
good
was it called?
traction. It's Everbloom. I wasn't a co-founder, but I helped those guys. I was like advisor, and I was doing, also hands-on advising, so I was building some stuff as well because it was needed. But we're doing like it still exists, right? But now it's like creator investments via crypto, right? So like you invest into YouTubers, and I think the team now is very passionate about it. But back then, I wasn't that passionate about it, and so I left the company basically, right? So, but the narrative was this: it was like, okay, we make XYZ per month for a bootstrap business that would have been decent money, right? But because it was kind of like let's say a spin out of a startup studio where you have the VC from the beginning, then obviously that's the expectation you're building on, that there will be a follow-up round and a follow-up round and a follow-up round, and will be either huge or nothing, right? Go big or go home kind of approach. And so then they were sitting at, double digit MRR, like 1,000 MRR. And they were trying to raise money because that was the only way to maintain the team and kind of keep pushing, because the team was a certain size that is warranted for the kind of app that it is, right? And it was impossible to raise based on that scope because it was too small for like the next round of VC. And so then within, I think, I don't know, it was a couple weeks, maybe a month or two, then they were kind of looking at, okay, how can we combine this with like what's hot, like crypto or NFT or whatever. And then I think they raised like 2 million within 2 months or something without a problem, just because it's like that's where the market wants to, or the VCs want to put their money, right, on these kind of bets. And that's like also huge scope, right? And so I was just kind of like, man, honestly, I want to do what I want to do, right? And I want the company to kind of support what I want to do. And obviously, it needs to be reasonable. Like we need to make money because we need to pay salaries, right? But if that is covered, then I don't necessarily want to have this dependency where I have some external person that maybe doesn't have exactly aligned incentives with me, right? Because it's like, for me, I want to survive, right? Like that's my goal. But then for a VC, it's like, I don't care if you survive as long as you get huge, right? Like it's a bit exaggerated, but that's kind of like the incentives aren't always aligned, right? So it's more just important to blow up rather than it is to, become like survive, right? So I think that it's just something that creates friction, and I don't want to, deal with that if I can avoid it, that kind of thing. But that obviously comes with expectations or things that we can't do, right? Like we have to be very scrappy. We can put a lot of money into marketing, and obviously that is a learning curve. But we, for example, our approach is a lot in partnering with people with existing audiences or with existing distribution that we can just leverage to get early sales and then build marketing on top of that. And a lot of it will be cheap but more long-term sources of traffic, right? Like SEO, for example, right? Where it's like, yes, I need to invest and it will take a while until it kind of not blows up, but it gets traction. It will take longer than like burning a lot of money through ads. but it has like longevity and it will stay around as long as, SEO doesn't go to shit, which we don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon, but you know what I mean, right? So I think those more like long-term focused streams of traffic, and then we throw in some ads here and there if we can afford it, to just test out which kind of keywords to target, or just how we can, how the website converts, and just run some tests. But it's not like our core kind of strategy, right? And with these partners, we always have the existing distribution and existing networks that we can tap into very cheap, right? Like we're giving away equity because it's like like a joint venture basically, right? But we're not, it's very bootstrapper friendly because you're not paying anything up front, because you're make the pie bigger and then you get both a piece, right? That's kind of our
Yep.
approach and how we see it with these partnerships. So that's what we've been doing. And it's either we have the project, like with Swiftbrief, for example, was us, and we actually acquired it from
Us
someone
meaning
else.
you had the idea, you identified the pain point, and maybe just kinda, like, take
Mhm.
Swift Brief or the bride maybe the bridesmaid service is a little more,
Yeah.
fun, but, like, talk through, like, what that process is of the idea, identifying you said, like, the Goldilocks zone, right? Not too
Yeah.
large, not too
Yeah.
small of a problem. So, like, talk us through, like, what that whole ideation process is, and then proof of concept and building.
So Swiftbrief is a special case because that is actually acquired from someone else. So someone built it,
You
someone
acquired it from
investigated it,
someone else?
and he built the kind of core, and then he was like, I don't have time to maintain it. And then we were like, yeah, well, we did some research, we looked at it, and we, in the SEO space, a lot of even big companies are bootstrap, like Ahrefs, things like that, right? So there is, and it is not a winner takes all market. That was something we were like thinking about, right? Where it's like there's so many smaller tools within the SEO space. It's very fragmented from like my, when you go into the market, there's some big players, but there's so many, kind of Japanese chef knife tools for like one tiny use case. And then you have these SEOs or like agencies, and they combine like 10 different tools into some sort of cobbled together
It's a
workflow. And
lot
then
more
they're like,
art form than it
yeah,
is like, here's the exact science, and I guess that's part of the nature
yeah,
of SEO is we
yeah.
don't really know exactly what perfectly does controls the rankings.
So it's like that makes it easier for us to also survive while having a solid share that is like big enough for us, because we don't need to be like billion-dollar company, right? I think for us, the sweet spot is around 50K MRR, maybe 100K. That's like kind of what we're aiming for. And if we get there, obviously that's great, right? But so that's a special case, right? So I can't really say that much about that part. And it's also just something we, as a validation piece, we got it, and then I was just like, look, I have this thing. How do you guys like it? Like I just tweeted about it to my audience, which back then, I mean, it's still tiny, right? I have like 4,000 followers, something like that. So it's not a lot. And back then it was half of that maybe. And I had a guy reach out, which is also like a marketing partner for that tool now. His name's Flavio. And he was saying like, yeah, that's exactly what I do in my agency, but I use like 5 tools and I love this thing, So that was like somewhat validating. And then we were saying like, okay, let's just spend 2-3 months on just ironing out some details and just see if we can get more traction. So it's more like a like a, not like a mastermind move that we were like, this is going to blow up. We were just more like inching our way towards seeing that it's feasible. And at this stage, we're not super huge. I think we're around like $500 MRR, but we have
Wa Was the
10.
goal to buy it so you had an anchor of MMR and something to build on top of? Or was it something like, did the thesis change between buying and then improving versus just building from scratch with a partner?
So we wanted to buy, like, the idea what that we were exploring is like, okay, can we, because we tried to build something from scratch, right? And we're like, okay, we're maybe not super good at this because we're thinking too large, or we're too dumb to do it right. So we're like,
So
okay,
that was
maybe
failed
we
project
can,
1.
yeah. So maybe we can just buy something with a little bit of traction, but then obviously if you're looking at 5 to 10K, I mean, the price, and it's not something we can afford. And this was more of a coincidence almost, where we were just thinking about, should we try this? And then we were like, yeah, we can try it. But obviously we were just starting to look at like micro acquire, like the typical kind of places where you would maybe find a company in that size. And I think for us, it was just trying out, can we take away the risk of like failing in these early stages by getting something that already has validation and traction, right? But obviously this didn't really. I mean, it had one customer that churned when the tool, because the guy that owned it, he already had shut it down, so the customer was already gone. He had like refunded them because they bought like a lifetime deal, I think for $1,000 or something. So it's like validation, right? But obviously very limited amount. Ideally you would have like 10, 20 different customers and some sort of um yeah, not distribution, but like hedged bet, right? Or like
Yep.
there's a term for it. Can't make it up right now, but um diversification, right? That's what I was looking for. So some bit of diversification, just a bit more data points, a couple more data points. And it didn't have that, but obviously then we also got it for very cheap, right? So it's not the 50K acquisition that you're looking at if you're looking for something in the 5 to 10K realm. It was more, yeah, very cheap.
What was that purchasing process look like? So again, for someone who maybe is interested in
Yeah.
buying, doing a micro acquisition, did you go to Flippa? Are there like marketplaces you looked at, or was it more of going through your network and doing your own due diligence and finding something that made sense?
So we did check out marketplaces, but this specific deal was just someone on Twitter that I had followed, and he followed me, and he was also, doing some build in public stuff. And he just tweeted about it. He was saying like, "Oh, if nobody wants it, I'll just shut it down." And I even saw it like very late. I think I saw it like 2, 3 weeks after he tweeted it or something. I didn't, and then I was just like, "Yeah, it's still there," like. And he was like, "Yeah, nobody really said anything, so I already shut it down because he didn't want to keep paying for infrastructure and like the
Right.
to run it." And then I was like, "Yeah, cool, we'll take it." And then we had a bit of negotiation and we set up a asset purchase agreement, right? But we did like a very simple boilerplate. I checked like MicroAcquire if we could get their boilerplate, but it's only if you're like on platform and you're buying on platform. And the guy that sold it, he was like, "Yeah, I could probably also put on MicroAcquire, but I need to clean up the code and I need to do this and that." And he was like, "Ah, it's probably not worth it. So either you take it or I put it open source or something." I think he wanted to do that, right? Just to have
Yeah.
it for his portfolio or to show it to people if they ask. And so that was it. And I think it took a bit to kind of iron out the details in terms of how we work. Like it was not super straightforward, even with the template and things like that. And even though it was like super small acquisition, but it was also not really the focus of either of us, right? Like we had a lot of other stuff going on. He had a lot of other stuff going on. That's the reason why he didn't have time to continue to run it. And
Yeah.
so then it's like 2 months or something, even
Yeah.
though it's just like this very simple thing. So I think if I would buy something again, just from like what I've heard from other people on like MicroAcquire or these typical like platforms, I think it's should be much smoother process there, and everything is kind of already ironed out for you, unless you reach a certain like acquisition size that's like need some custom deal or something. So if you can avoid doing like these custom deals, I would try to do that.
So you bought the first one, you kind of took it over, you tweak some of the code, you make it a little bit better. What's your marketing strategy look like for that one specifically? I know you mentioned you tweeted it out and someone on your network said, "That's great. I love it." But you got an asset. Maybe it's a little bit validated. Maybe it's kind of
Yeah.
sort of not quite validated. What do you do then?
So what we did with SwiftBrief, the marketing partner, we have multiple marketing partner at this stage. Each of them has like a core kind of channel that they take care of, and he is actually also the target customer of the tool. So he's the customer that helps build it, and he is the kind of marketing arm that also markets it on Twitter. So he's doing a lot of social media, and has like an audience where I have an audience, right? Like I have some followers on Twitter, but they're more in the kind of build in public space or like builders. And then he has an audience built around SEO because that's what he talks about, right? So it's much better fit for that product. Like no one from my audience is like actually interested in the tool. It's more like in the process behind the tool, like what do you do for marketing, right? Like more the kind of what happens
Indie
in the
hackers
background.
audience, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So for that, it's mainly social media. He has a newsletter. It's like in every newsletter, it's at the bottom. That's another angle of it. He's doing like some reactive blogging. So like when there's like people looking for blogs, or someone reaches out, like we had one in HubSpot, I think the Hustle. So the Hustle, we have a backlink from the Hustle, and we have something from Indie Hackers coming up. So it's like a little bit here and there, but the core focus is really Twitter until now. And we have recently onboarded another marketing partner slash he helps also with product. So he really is amazing, because what he has done, he has developed algorithms for all the things we're doing, right? Because it's a standard process, right? They are like one step more here in this agency, or one step less here in this other agency, but it's mainly all the same stuff, and people just have different tools that do the same thing. And so he has developed algorithms that do everything we're doing, but he plugs all the data sources externally together from Ahrefs or SEMrush or whatever. He gets a bunch of CSVs and then puts them in somewhere, and then he has Google Sheets that have calculations, and they do like scoring, and they do all these things. They calculate like keyword frequencies by like scanning the text in the Google Sheet, and then obviously it's like not super optimized format for the kind of work, but it's obviously what people do if they don't have a tool. They make their own.
Right,
They
it's kind of
can't
the
program.
scrappy, built it
Yeah,
in Sheets,
yeah.
and there's some macros or whatever. Yeah.
It is like very elaborate for like a sheet. I didn't even know you could do all this with Google Sheets, right? But what's so nice about having these algorithms is that that's basically what a program is, right? It's just algorithms, and so we can really easily productize this because it's already existing. We just put a UI wrapper around it, and then we have that kind of proven, validated piece of what he sells in his agency as a service. We just productize that, and now everybody can get access to it, right? And then we build some more fancy stuff on top that he can't do because it's too hard to do in like Sheets, or it's just not possible, right?
And
And
so is it
so yeah.
to like find the chicken or the egg first? Like, do you find the product and then find the marketers, or both,
It
or do you find the
depends.
marketer and then find a product that they can sell?
So here it was, we had the product first, we found the marketer, and then with the other tool, the Bridesmaid stuff that you were talking about. So it's like a maid of honor speech generator that's just built on top of GPT-4, and then obviously some training, because who we are partnered with, she is a bridesmaid for hire. That's her website, right? So that's that's her brand, and she actually had a lot of press traction. She's been doing it for a while, but back when it came out, it was just like such a viral thing, because I don't know, like
Who doesn't
USA
click on an
Today,
article that says bridesmaid for hire?
yeah,
Yeah.
and people are like, that sounds hysterical. And then obviously she's also a good storyteller, right? So she has like the story where she says like, yeah, I was on all these weddings of all my friends, and then I was like, why shouldn't I do this for other people? And it's just like, funny and good, and like viral, has good potential to be like a viral story, right? And so she has built a brand, and she's been running this business for a while, and she has a service that's like a premium service where she writes bridesmaid speeches for people, right? And so she does that, but obviously it's not very scalable because it's very time consuming, and it's also just very expensive because it is time consuming. So there's a high barrier of entry for people that need the help, because a lot of people just don't know how to write a speech, or like a good speech, because it's not like something you do every day. For a lot of people, like my last speech I wrote was like 10 years ago or something for school, and then I didn't even care what I was writing. So it's just tough, right? So that's why templates exist, and people will like download templates, and then they plop in the name, and then they change it around a bit. But this is really and that's one way how to solve that problem, right? And then she has a service that's like, I think $350. The other one is $400 or something. And so that is very expensive, and not a lot of people can afford it. And so a lot of people that need help with writing a speech, they can't really get it, because if it's too expensive, right? Like I wouldn't buy something for $400, right?
Right.
That's my personal opinion, at least. Right? So but she came to us, and she was like, or her husband, which is an old friend from Hater days. So back in 2017 we launched this dating app that was also viral, right? And he was a marketer there, and so he came.
Just for context, Hater was quite cool. So Hater was dating, but based on your dislikes. So if you dislike people who eat plain pizza with no toppings, and someone else dislikes people who like pizza with no toppings, then you'll be matched. Anyway, quick aside.
Yeah, so it's like the love through hate was the slogan, right? So that, and then he was like, "Oh, can we do something?" Jen, which is his wife, so the from Bridesmaid from Hire, Jen from Bridesmaid for Hire. He was saying like she writes these speeches, and that's like what GPT does, right? And I was like, yeah, I mean, we can have a look. And so basically, we're just again taking a process that already exists, right? Like with SwiftBrief, it's like this manual process that's run within an agency or from an SEO, and then now it's like this writing process where it's like, okay, how it works is she sends a form to you when you buy the service. She sends a form with questions, right? And then you give answers, and then you meet on a call for half an hour, and then you go through the answers, and you add more context, because people usually answer with 3 words. You say like, how did you meet? And then they say like, at Starbucks. That's like how you met the bride, and that's obviously not enough to write a good speech, because it's lacking a lot of information, right? So that's like the core challenge, where she says a lot of people don't answer the questions at all, or they just write like very short answers, which need me to go on a call and then dig into everything around it and help them like kind of jog their memory of like, okay, but you did this, but then what happened after that, or what happened before, depending on how the situation evolves. She needs to be quite reactive in like digging for
Have a
gold,
true
so to speak.
dialogue and pull out the
Yeah,
stories, the anecdotes, the funny
exactly.
bits, the sad bits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just kind of help people give all the information, even to write a speech, not just writing the speech, but that they have all the information that they need, right? And so that's, for example, why we decided to build a chatbot, because that helps. And we also, in the prompt, there's specific instructions to keep asking for context until the tool, like the AI decides that there's enough information to write a good speech, right? Obviously, that doesn't always work, but it works quite well, in terms of what we've tested. And we have, obviously, what was great was having the prompt and then having some inputs and then having her speech that she's written to compare, right? Because we can directly compare, okay, does it capture all the information that's like essential because it's in her speech, right? And then does it actually have a good structure? And obviously that's all something we get from her, right? From her process, we get the speech structure.
The baseline example of what
Yeah,
is good, what are examples that I should reference against, and then you can benchmark against the generated content, the
yeah,
generated speech
exactly.
against
So
that.
that is like the perfect world, right? When you try to make a good prompt, it's like I have inputs and I have like an example, or I have like multiple examples that I can just check the prompt against. And so we had like a lot of material to tweak the prompt how it needs to be in the end. And so now it's basically the process the same. We take a process and we kind of productize it and make it available for more people, right? And make it faster as well and make it cheaper. So that is kind of what we're doing. And because there is a process with this specific example, but also with SwiftBrief, right? Because there is a process and people are solving it somehow manually or through templates or through Google Sheets or whatever. It's like there is a market there, right? Or there is at least validation that people have this problem. Now the question becomes with the Bridesmaid bot, for example, it's more, the risk is more that people don't want to, cheap out and do it with AI rather than doing it with a person or doing it themselves. I think that's an objection we sometimes get, mostly from people that don't use the tool. They're just like, oh, it's so personal, you should do this yourself, right? So that is something that becomes the risk, I think. But the risk isn't necessarily in, is there a market at all? It becomes like, is there a market for this
Yeah, and
specific
that's almost independent.
solution?
That's kind of the solution that you're building. Does that
Yeah,
address the pain in the right
yeah,
way? But it sounds like the process is, or your kind of evolving process with what you're doing is identify something that people do kind of manually or in a way that is not accessible to everyone, or takes too much time or is too
Mm.
expensive, and then take that, build something, build software that does that in a better way, and do it so that you have built-in distribution so that you have some type of marketing partner. And then ideally, the hypothesis is the software that you build addresses that pain, delivers it in a unique wrapper or a unique way. That's fascinating. So you said 50K MRR is kind of the end goal, the target. What's the journey to get there? Is it spitting out one of these once a quarter? Is it having multiple in progress? Do you sunset them ever? Like, what's the ongoing process look like for the portfolio that you're starting to build out?
So I think it's kind of something we revisit every three to 6 months, right? Where we look at what do we have, where do we stand, do we want to commit here further, do we want to commit more resource to this, or should we try something else? And a couple products we have are sunset. A couple products are kind of on maintenance mode. There's like a YouTube subtitle tool that we have that is kind of making some money, but it's not been shown to be super simple to grow and not super um, not in the market size that we would want to be like pull its weight, so to speak. So it's just kind of there, but we're not really doing much with it. And I think right now, so we have two main projects. The Bridesmaid project was just like a timing thing where it's, or like the Bridesmaid for hire, where it was why not kind of thing, like when you really think much about it, because it's quite limited in scope. It's quite easy to judge how long that will take to build and how long it will take to get out. But we have two core focuses, which one is Swift Brief, and then the other one is like a finance tool that we built together with these finance consultants, and it's for integrated financial planning. And I think those things, they are projects that potentially, if they go well, will probably consume a lot of our resources and time, right? So they can be built for years without, they're basically their own companies, which what we're struggling with right now is to actually make progress on all of this. It's not been super easy because we, just have to also keep in mind that we are bootstrapping. So we have some cash source that we need. So that's another project here and another project there. So I think that's something we're actually been struggling with. But I think these projects, as long as they keep making progress, they will just continue to be built out, because that's also something we've learned. We tried this approach of like, okay, let's build like a micro SaaS and then launch it and then see for a bit and then 3 months or whatever. And then if it doesn't get traction, we kill it. Then we do something else. And I think we tried that, but I think that is something that people, they overcompensate, right? Between like, okay, I worked on something for 2 or 3 years before, and now I want to do it really fast, and it needs to get traction immediately, or it doesn't matter. So then they're like, build something in 4 weeks, and then if it doesn't make them 10K, they're like, oh, let's scrap it. It's shit, right?
I think it's this idea of finding the repeatable model, finding the process, the meta process that goes into identifying a pain point, solving a problem, building it, and then ultimately creating enough value to live off of it. I don't know if it was championed by Tim Ferriss first or Peter Levels in the more, digital nomad mindset. For you and kind of your team that's doing this, what are you trying to prove? What is the validation that you're trying to check for yourself, for the industry? You're doing it in public, so that also there's a reason why you're doing that. What is behind all this for you?
I mean, for us, I think there's two main things. So we're four guys, right? I'm the only one that's full time. We have three guys that are part time. Obviously, the first goal, the most important goal for us is to have a revenue source out of a product rather than cash, like renting out our time, that will cover all four of us to work on it full time, to enable us to work on what we want, so to speak, right? So that's the first goal. And then build in public, I think, helps with accountability. So it's also like I said earlier, it helps with validation, and it helps with like building relationships, and like you never know who's watching, right? So it can't hurt to spend some time on just being out in the open. And it also helps giving a reality check, right? Like what a lot of people don't do is like they're not showing their work, and that's also something with the first company that we didn't do for 2 years or something. We were building something stealth, right? And we were just once we launched, we're like, okay, nobody cares about this, but we should have known this like 2 years earlier by just asking someone. This is actually something that solves a problem, right? Or like, like this is a bit of an exaggeration, but we should have known this much earlier, but we were too scared to show it to someone before it's perfect, right? I think that's the kind of beginner mistake to say like, oh, now I already invested 2 weeks, now I can do one more, and then it's two more and three more, and then now I can polish this because that isn't like perfect yet. And then it's just like you're scared. And I think building that from the core to like build it in public just takes that away, and it just gives you a reality check, I think, as well. I mean, and obviously it also helps stay motivated because it's a very supportive community, right? Sometimes too
Are those
supportive
the
almost.
biggest things that you've kind of taken away from building in public? Is like, for, again, you've previously built, behind closed doors or just kind of doing things in different ways. You're building in public now. Like, what's the biggest takeaway from you? Is it more motivating, or you ship faster, or you abandon more quickly? Like, what's the biggest perk that you've experienced in building publicly?
I do think that it's mainly the relationships that I've built. So it's not necessarily because my audience is not a target customer usually for these tools. So it's not necessarily marketing, but the relationships, like finding marketing partners, right? Finding advisors like Arvid Kahl. He's like a big bootstrapper, for example. He is one of our advisors, and I only met him through Twitter. So things like that where you can't really put a value or like a return on investment on it because it's very much like in flux at all times. But I think it's just people like when they see that you're doing something right, and then you show your work, and then also helps them. On Twitter specifically, it's like a lot of times you won't get an answer from someone if you write a DM, but if you do it like publicly, because then they can also show their knowledge or authority in a public forum rather than in DMs, then they will be more willing to respond to you, and you get their attention and things like that. Where it's like in DMs, they're just going to ignore it because it's like they need to spend time out of their day to answer something, and you're not really giving anything back, right? I think it's just a more kind of win-win approach as well, where it's like that's one of our kind of values that we want to, like I said earlier, make the pie bigger, and then give everyone a slice and like work together on, the sum is greater of all the parts, right? Something like that. That's kind of like these kind of mindsets that we have, and that we try to leverage in these projects. And I think I don't necessarily need the motivation, right? So that's not super important to me. It helps, but I am generally like a very self like driven internally from like I want to build cool, or not cool, but like I want to build. I guess I still have that drive. I want to build cool products, right? But I have learned that that's not all that matters. It also needs to be like useful, and there also needs to be a market. But I think that drive that I had from the beginning, where it's like I want to build something useful and cool that people like to use, and then you know I remember, for example, with Hater, when it was like viral, and I saw someone randomly like using it or whatever, and I was like, that makes me happy when I'm like, oh, this guy's using this app, the thing that I built, right? I think for a lot of builders, that's like really cool feeling to have. And so that's just kind of what I'm going for. But as I've matured, I learned that I also need to be reasonable, that I need to pay my bills, and the older I get, the more bills I have to pay.
You
So it
can't
does
pay
get
pay bills based on hype alone. You need
yeah.
actual value creation. If you wave the magic wand, you get there, right? You get to the 50K MMR. You have maybe a portfolio of a few apps that are doing it. What then? Like, is there an end vision? Is it you want to build to the point of you don't need to build anymore and you can just sit back, you can relax more, or you want to build things that don't need to make money and you don't have that constraint anymore? Like, what would be on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just want to have more, but that's interesting, right? So I'm never gonna not work, I think, because I don't know. It's not, it used to be my whole life, and that wasn't healthy, and it's not that anymore. Like I have other things going on, but I would work like all day, every day. I would like not meet with friends because I was like, no, I'm building this huge thing. It's gonna be huge, and then it goes nowhere. That's also a reason what I've learned where I'm like, okay, it's not good to put your life on hold to just like grind it out and put all your relationships on hold, and then your thing goes bust and you have nothing because now you couldn't raise money for it. Like that goes back to what we are talking about in the beginning. But I think that's not it. I think what I want to do is just have the security to do whatever I want, just have options, right? That's actually also one of our values, optionality. So it's like, by bootstrapping, I keep the option open to, if I need to raise money, I can do that later, right? If I have some traction, and then now I know I have like this small flame that if I pour some gasoline on it, it will be much bigger than I could do it myself. I can, right? But if you or I can just continue to bootstrap it if that's what we all think as a company is the right thing to do, right? Then I can do that. But with VC, for example, in this specific instance, it's like you lock yourself into this one path and you don't really have many options, right? And so
You
that's
become
a
dependent
case
on
where,
the funding from third
yeah,
parties. You become dependent on the next round. You become dependent on the IPO or acquisition is like the
yeah,
only
I
path,
mean,
unless
exactly.
you want to
You lock
fire
yourself
70% of the team.
into one specific path that is like kind of laid out for you because it's very, it's either you raise funding and you die, or you raise funding and you raise more funding and you raise more funding, and then some sort of exit scenario, right? It's almost like education. It's like you go to school and then you go to university and then you get a corporate job. It's all like laid out for you already, and that's your only option, and that's okay. I mean, I don't think it's bad. It's just not something I want to necessarily do, and I think is right for me. And so once we have that money, it's obviously becomes just we have the options to do whatever we want. Like we can continue to grow the company. We can have it as a cash flow and just put it on maintenance like we did with some other projects. Obviously, at much smaller numbers, but we could do that at higher numbers as well with more effort. Or we can sell it, or whatever we want to do with it. And if we don't want to work on it anymore, and that's the other part. I'm usually rambling too much, but the other part is like we all with the having multiple bets. I think for me, having one thing and only working on one thing gets very boring at some point. So I want to have different things, right, that I can switch between, and then I can do something else, and I can get back to the other thing with more focus, right? I don't want to switch too often because that gets distracting. But if I can do it like week over week, or I don't know, 2 days, 2 days, or something like that, I think I can get into a good groove where I can focus on it enough, but it doesn't get boring for me, right? Like when I
Yeah, I
did
think
these
it's.
other parts. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think that piece is very true to prevent burnout. You also mentioned how often VCs or the market will dictate you need to pivot, and you might not do a pivot that you want. Therefore, you're not enjoying the work. Therefore, you don't want to do it as much. I think that can also tie in there. But one of the things that is also very true about the diversification piece is not only does it keep you more stimulated, you can pick up learnings from one and apply to the other. And lastly, VCs have diversification. Entrepreneurs do not. You're
Hmm.
putting all of your eggs into one basket, typically underpaying yourself. And even in the best case scenario, you're doing that for 5 to 10 years before you actually get the real compensation. And of course, 99, 95, or whatever percentage you want to use, fail and don't actually get there. So by doing it with small bets or multiple small bets, you do have more of that diversification that a VC typically gets to pick up on, or a traditional investor, but you're doing it while building yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not symmetric, right? Like it's asymmetric. Like you carry all the risk of someone else that is diversified, and you have all the risk. So I think that it's just not good for the person that has all the risk. I mean, it can work, but I think it's very, I don't know. I just kind of learned after trying it a couple times. It's not like I didn't try it, and maybe it's just not for me. Maybe I'm not good enough in like executing, right? But the chances that I will be successful for my own standards, that there is a product that makes good money and is being used, because once that's very important for me that people use it, right? I already touched on that earlier. But if my product goes away because my company goes away and I can't sustain it, then obviously people are not going to use it because it's going to be gone, right? So I think that plays a big role, that I can just build something that will last, right? And I think bootstrapping gives you a much higher chance of success of a small to medium sized business than a giant business, but you have such a small chance of like getting there, right?
It's
And so
like
I think
your
that,
upside is smaller with this approach, but you have more likelihood of achieving it versus
yeah.
will you hit $1 billion with this model? Most likely never, or very, very unlikely. But you have a far more likelihood of making a few $1 million a year or something to that effect. I've talked with a lot. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are engineers that have full-time jobs or entrepreneurs or kind of somewhere in between. One of the biggest things that I think builders or software engineers often do is they have a side hustle. They have a project that they're working on. Maybe they're not shipping fast enough. Maybe they're not letting go fast enough. Maybe they're not worrying about monetization. But I think there's always kind of that dream of building something that produces cash flow more than the cost of it. And you can kind of start focusing on that full time. You're doing it to a degree, right? You figured out a way to, at least you are focusing full time on building out these side projects. I'm sure there's tons of people who are wondering, like, how do you do that? Are you independently wealthy and you can just not worry about cash for 3 years, or how are you actually financing being able to work on this full time?
So it is a combination, right? So we do occasionally take on freelance or paid work that will, build up our runway to, let's say, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, depending on, how far up we can get it before we start sacrificing product work for, paid work. Because it's like, it's a necessary evil for us. It's not something we want to focus on. It's just something we know we need to do sometimes. And slowly over time, the goal is to have product revenue replace more and more of like service revenue, or money for hourly rate, hourly work. And so that is one piece. But I also am very low with my salary. Like, our burn is super low because three guys are part-time, so they don't get a salary, and my salary is like bare minimum to survive, right? Which also isn't amazing, but it is just an investment that I am making, right? By sacrificing, I'm not sacrificing my living standards. So it is still good enough, but I'm not, putting away money for retirement. I used to put money into ETFs and like index funds and whatnot. I'm not doing that right now. But I also don't have to get my money out of it to stay afloat, right? So it's like, it's a balance. I think it's fine for a year or two. You can do that, and you'll survive. And
I
I've done
think
that
it's
before.
a yeah, I
So
mean it's a cool approach because you're first of all, you're not dipping into your net worth or your assets, right? You're not kind of taking cashing out retirement accounts or burning the midnight oil there, but you are taking the mindset of if and when we do take on consulting work, it's not we're going to try to keep doing 10 hours of consulting work a week in perpetuity. It's no, let's get as much cash as possible for a fixed period of time, be done with this, and then burn it down, right? Burn it, try to make it last as long as possible, but burn it down. So your singular focus continually comes back to, well, I'm trying to build recurring revenue through this platform. And so
yeah.
I think that approach, rather than what I often see is I have a full-time job, but I'm trying to spin this up on the side, or I'm a full-time consultant and I'm trying to do my own personal project and make it make money someday. That's tough because you haven't actually committed, you haven't actually leaned into the scariness of, yeah, this is my exit plan, this is my strategy. I'm not really going to have this as a backup. I'm not going to have a job as a backup. I'm leaning all into it. So that's commendable.
Yeah, I think there's different views on this, right? There's some people that say keep your job and do it as a side hustle until it carries you. And I think I tried that before, but I think you're not really, and now it comes down to working in batches where you have a batch that's fully focused on one thing versus then fully focused on something else. I think it's better if you could fully focus on product work for, let's say, 3 months. And if you keep your job, maybe you can take a break or a sabbatical or whatever, but I don't think that's, that's very rare, I would say. it's better for me, I think, and for making progress and building some momentum, it's better to do it focused, right? So that's, I think, why we decided to do it. And yeah, I mean, it is still annoying, right? Because you get distracted and you build some momentum, and then you're like, oh, cash is empty, we need to do like a project here or whatever. And but it is a necessary evil, right? And I do think that it's very tough to build something on the side while having a full-time job. I just think it's better to do it in sprints, so to speak. But it's
I
also
think that's
tough.
a yeah, but it's an interesting mindset shift because I think often humans generally think in black and white. So it's I have a job and one day I'll quit my job and then I'll be able to do this other thing full time, right? And it's either or. But you could also, again, you mentioned it's hard to do, but you could do a sabbatical where you work full time for a full year and then you spend 1 year or 2 years focused on building and truly focusing on your side project. And you can always go get another job. You're doing it in a more micro fashion of cycles, sprints, right? And I
Yeah.
think that kind of taking the big, scary, lofty thing of all or nothing, it's going to succeed or fail. It's not so black and white. It can be a little more nuanced of, well, are you succeeding right now? You have some recurring revenue, right? So it's not complete failure. And you're going to keep stacking those layers and keep working at it over time. And you need to re up and get some more fuel for the tank. You can whenever you need to.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm lucky enough, I think, to from experience in the past that if I need work, it's quite simple to get, right? I think that I have built up some sort of network that I can tap into and some sort of just like experience that is like relevant, and just like being a developer, it's not the hardest place to be in if you're looking for a job. So I think that helps, and it makes it less scary still, and keeping the burn of the company low, and keeping the ship very nimble. My finance co-founder always says, right, is like, we can keep the company running forever, right? Like, we're not going to really run out of money as soon as I need money and we don't have it. I need to get a job, but the company will continue to run, right? That goes into like building something that lasts, because the burn without my salary is so low that it just makes sense. Because it is, I mean, at this stage, I do think it's actually profitable. In Germany, you have a German company, it's very expensive to have like accounting and all that, but we want to do it right, so we have to pay for that. But we're making around $1,000 per month across the projects that we have, and we're spending 800 for services and like all the accounting. So we are profitable, that the company wouldn't go under if there wasn't my salary. Obviously, my salary isn't included in that. So that is already like a success compared to where we were like a year ago, right? Obviously, it's going very slow, but I think that is just how it is if you don't have the money to spend on explosive growth and you need to figure things out as you go. So that is obviously the downside. But and we're also trying to by doing these more ref share or joint venture deals where we get marketing capacity but very cheap upfront. Obviously it's not cheap, right? But it's like we're not paying anything up front, and we also have
No
a
cash
kind of
deals.
rev share deal with a company called Paralect. They're a venture studio that helps us actually also build some of these things, because I'm not building everything alone. So we have developers, we have designers, we have like product execution, and we're not giving away any money up front, which then if we win, then everybody wins, right? Like that's the idea of the rev share or the profit share or whatever. But we're not having to spend 20K a month baseline on salaries, because that's all the people we need to pay and all the expenses that we have. So we're really trying to build up all these partnerships or these marketing streams in a way where they are super, like, they cost time, but they don't cost upfront money, right? So in that sense, we keep it very um yeah, solid. Does that make any sense? We're not spending a lot of
Yeah,
money,
you
basically.
got the solid foundation of you can adapt to whatever happens because there's
Yeah.
not a lot of overhead and capital committed from a monthly perspective. What how many of these ventures, of these projects do you think it will take before you get to that true inflection point of monthly recurring revenue covers your salary plus overhead?
I think both projects that are our main focus right now, they do have the potential to do that. The question is more, I don't think it takes more projects. I think it will take more time to get to that point, right? And to figure it out. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to fail because there's something we don't control, right? Like some market shift or whatever, and it's going to fail. So that might take more projects, but I do think generally they have the potential if we execute them well to carry us. And I think I think we need to give it at least another 2 years. We were more when we started. We were more hopeful, also kind of naive. We're like, oh yeah, in a year and a half, and then that's already passed now, and now we're at like where we thought we were like 3 months in. So
Yep.
obviously, it's different for everyone. Depending on how good you are or what you do. Maybe we're not that good, but it is more. We're more reasonable now, I think, and we're more prepared as well because then we can assume a different mindset, right? And I think as a bootstrapper in general, I mean, you're probably not gonna run out of money, similar to us, right? We're just gonna run out of motivation to keep going, and I think that's what happened with a lot of the early projects. But now that we have these two projects, we're fully like committed to them, and we're already committed a lot of time to them, and that's just what we've learned. We need, I think, this build something quick and then like I touched on that earlier, right? Like make a lot of money or kill it. I think that needs a balance, right? You need to move fast and you need to see some traction, but you can't kill something 4 weeks in because you ran one Google ad and you didn't get 15 sales. Like that's what I've seen a lot where it's like people, I tried Google ads and they don't work, especially in the maker, like indie space, because a lot of people don't have experience and they don't have a reasonable expectation of what it takes to make money with ads and how much tweaking and how much time it takes to have like a profitable ad and create something that is like repeatable success. And then even then, once you have one, you need to set up new ones all the time and like experiment. So I think that is like an underestimation. So I think what we have set as a baseline is like, let's give it 6 months and see if we reach these goals. And then if we don't reach them, where are we? Are we like 20% there? Are we 80% there? Like where we're unreasonable and like how we set the goal. So there's like, it's in flux. I don't think we will, but we do have inflection points where we say like, okay, for example, with Swift, it's like at the end of the year, I think we wanted to be at like $1,000 monthly recurring revenue. That would have been a good goal. We took it over. We started in March, so that's in 7, 8, 9 months. It's too late. Um, my math is not that good anymore. No, so it's like 9 months, and I think we're at like half 500 right now. So it's not all the way there, but we still have 3 months to go. September, 4 months. I was like counting with my fingers how many months it is. So yeah, I mean, we'll see, but it's definitely, I don't think it's unreasonable, and I think it would be a good goal. And obviously, the bigger we are, if the product works, the easier it will be to grow. It's just the first until you hit a ceiling, obviously, but like in a
I also,
reasonable range.
yeah, I mean, I think there's also a big aspect of success in anything. And I think it shows up in entrepreneurship, it shows up in products and bootstrap products. Obviously, there's a fundamental of, are you actually solving a problem, right? Like that just has to, are you delivering value? And this could be in a job, in a career, right? Are you actually useful at your job? Or
Mm.
are you kind of not useful? Or as a product, is it useful or not? So you do have to check that box. But beyond that, the more I've studied this, the more I've looked around for examples of what success is, it really is time in the game of just putting in the reps and consistently showing up, consistently putting in effort, consistently just working at it over and over and over and over and over again. And I think that we underappreciate the amount of time, just literal time, that has to go into something for it to be success. And it's really difficult to short circuit that unless you just, work 100-hour weeks, and then maybe you can accelerate that a bit. But there's just a certain amount of, you need to be in the game for long enough for it to hit that inflection point where it can pop off. And I think we forget that. but I like the approach that you're going with.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole idea from us, like that we have with like partnering with other people, right? Where we're like, okay, Jen, like I said, she started the Bridesmaid for Hire, a girl. She started her business in 2014, and she has built up an audience since 2014. You know, which for us, that's like I could never imagine working that long on like one thing, but and that's what we're tapping into, and that's where we're willing to give away a piece of the pie from us, because we tap into her audience and we tap into what she has built up over time, and we just short circuit that, right? Like we could do it ourselves. I mean, maybe not in that area because we're not very talented in that area, but we could build I could build up an audience in like SEO myself if I would were really to go into the topic and would be really excited about it, but I'm not super. I don't know if I'm like super passionate about SEO. I see it makes sense and we leverage it as like our marketing channel, but I'm not as passionate as like Flavio is or like these other marketing partners that we have, right? So I think it makes more sense to get someone to do the job that like likes doing it, right? So I think that's always something. Also with hiring, there's always someone that likes doing a certain job that you might not like that they really like. Like my finance co-founder that likes looking at Excel sheets. I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on here. I don't really care. I can't be bothered to look at this. I mean, I need to understand it as well, but like I'm not.
There's a
If
difference
he
between
doesn't,
if you truly enjoy something naturally, you're going to do it regardless of how much you get paid for it.
yeah,
So yeah, I
yeah.
completely agree. And tapping into that is critical. It's critical.
And I mean,
If
it's
if
like
you were, oh, go ahead.
no, you're right. It's all good.
I was going to say, if you were to talk to someone who's starting out this bootstrapping path, besides kind of having built-in marketing or kind of having your partners lined up for the problem, what advice would you give to them to be successful in the bootstrapping game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would call myself successful yet, so I don't know if I'm the best person to give advice. But I think definitely matters to do something that you care about. I think a lot of people try to go for some cash grab, and I think they'll burn out one way or another, or just don't have the motivation to keep going, because if it doesn't work immediately, you'll get very discouraged and you just jump to the next thing, right? And then what we talked about, that there is some focus that is needed, right? So it will be very tough to do it like on the side. I would rather probably recommend to build up some buffer and then fully focus on it for a bit, like 3 months, 6 months, a year, however long it will take, right? And then I think one thing that's very important is not to be. I think one thing people do wrong a lot is like they're scared of competition. They say like, oh, someone already did this, and then they're like, yeah, I'm not going to do it because there's already competition, rather than seeing it as some point of validation where it's like there's people that are willing to pay for this tool because it's successful to get their problem solved. But obviously you need some sort of differentiation, right? But that is like the typical like VC focused more like mindset, where it's like if there is already something and there's a competitor, and if it's a winner takes all market, I shouldn't do anything here, right? I mean, obviously as a bootstrapper, you also shouldn't go into a market like that, but I think there it's more like needs to be new and disruptive and like huge, and to capture that huge opportunity, right? So here it's more just like look for things that people already pay for and then try to put your own unique spin on it, or target a niche audience, or do something specific, but don't do something that's like doesn't exist yet, because that's usually not a good sign. Even though people think it's good, it's usually a sign that there is either no market or people are not willing to pay for it, right? I think a lot of times you have like, I don't know if you can call that a market, but there is an audience for it. But this audience doesn't want to pay to get that problem solved, right? They're like, oh, I'll take it for free, but if you want $2, then I'm not going to do it. So I think that is important. And then the Goldilocks zone that we already talked about, right, where it's like, okay, make sure first that you even know where do you want to go, like how big does the project need to be for your own goals, like what are you trying to achieve, and then is it big enough to do that, or is it big enough, but then also is it small enough not to attract like huge competitors that just outspend you, and you just can't, as bootstrapper you just can't do it, right? And yeah, I think also it's always good to have SEO opportunity. That's, for example, what a lot of indie hackers, some people even go so far that they do keyword research first, and then they look at keywords and they build a product around that, because they're like, yeah, I have this opportunity that I can tap into. My one of my friends actually built a, it's more like an e-com store, not a SaaS, because he's not a programmer, but he built like a successful business on this model of like looking for high demand in search and low uh, supply. And then he built a business, and he was like, yeah, this is, but he's also
Around a
less,
specific product that was
yeah, he's
that
more
fit those
focused around
criteria.
like making money than he is on like, I want to solve a problem, you know. So that wouldn't be for me, but I mean, it worked for him, you know. So who
Yeah.
am I to judge?
If people want to follow you and your journey as you build and hack away and achieve bootstrapped infinite exit velocity of 50K MMR, where do they find you?
They can find me on Twitter. It's my first name, Stefan, but backwards. So it's Nafetz. It's a bit weird name. And then Wirth, Wirth.
Awesome.
And on YouTube as well. But yeah, you can find that on my Twitter. It's easier.
Perfect. Thanks for coming on, Stefan.
Thanks for having me, Elijah.